WADADLI-VYBZ Radio.
Welcome to our next interesting episode of Gwan. I'm your host, Darren Andrew. Today we interview one of the brothers of the Bobo Shanti House of Rastafari. He's a priest of the Bobo Shanti, he's a teacher, chief lecturer, and founder of the Priest Isaac Institute of Holistic Knowledge. Pleased to have you as our guest on Gwan.
Blessed love, my Lord, do give thanks. It's a great honor to be in thy presence.
Now, before we start our show, there have been an interesting topic of the Bible and its legitimacy in Rastafari movement. Some Rastas is saying we must stop seeing Rastafari through the Bible because the Bible was written to control and divide us. And some Rastas is saying it is the way we found out that Selassie is the King of Kings and Lords of Lords through the Bible. I can go on and on and on and on with this topic. So before we touch on those points, let me start this way. Where did Rastafari start with you?
Oh, well, that's a different level altogether. Well, it's a natural calling for me when it comes to Rastafari. In fact, even as a child, I could always recall I'm a person that always wanted to know who the Almighty was. So that was one of the main things about me as a little child. Honestly, never had any problem directly with the Christian church that we grew up in and all of these different things. It wasn't really about that. But there was something in me that was still saying, hey, you need to really understand who God really was. So there was always this inborn conception within me to seek out, let's just say, the face of the Almighty. So as a child, I was always praying. I always said, Almighty God, I know that you exist. I may not be able to put my finger exactly on who you are, but if it's one thing I'm asking you, please reveal yourself to me. That was since a child. As far as taking up Rastafari, it was maybe at about the age of 18 or 19. I really began to come into consciousness, leaving school, going into college. And I was really, checking a lot of black movements. I read up a lot on Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. Usually you start that way. And I came across some books from Ivan Van Sertima, Naeem Akbar, Dr. Ben. So then my consciousness started to, come broader. And then within the Bible now, I was always, a student of the Bible. I came across the scriptures that directly lead to Haile Selassie, the understanding of him and his connection. Keeping in mind that even prior to that, I was reasoning with a lot of the different Rastafaris. I was working at a specific lumberyard, and I must say, I think that was really where I was grounded in the philosophy of Haile Selassie I, going around some of, I would call him my elder, although he's very close to me in age, Bingy Mike Ras Idash from the Itel shop. And there again was another level. And it was just up to me, reading one day. I was reading the Bible. It was the 3rd day of December, 1996. And I came across the scripture, Revelation chapter 5, verse 5. Keep in mind, I know the scripture and I've read it several times and I understand how Rasta made the link. And although there was no disrespect whatsoever for Haile Selassie or Rastafari, there was just this love for it. But it was not something I held on to. But at that moment, I don't know what happened, but when I was reading it, I was on my bed and I said, hey, you know something? This is the man for you, Emperor Haile Selassie I. And from that moment, I never turned back.
From your research, do you think that the Bible is written in chronological order?
No. It's not. For a simple answer is no. Of course, they're going to be the argument about the Bible being historical or not. But even in its metaphorical way of expressing itself, no, it's not really in chronological order. Why I will say that is that, for example, the book of Job, most theologians would tell you that the book of Job is, if not the oldest book in the Bible, one of the oldest books. So obviously, if it's the oldest book, it was written before Genesis, written before Deuteronomy, written before a lot of the other books, but yet still it's not the first book. It's not specifically at the beginning of the Bible itself. But yet still the Bible does have a storyline to it that it follows. As I said, some people may argue it being historical or just esoteric or metaphoric, whatever the case is. But it is a collection of books. Some of the books, as I said, Job and maybe a few others, really take you out of the sequence. But it is a storyline that is being given. So there's a level of chronology to it. But it's not fully chronological. So it would be a mistake for a person to try to read it from beginning to the end, as if you're just following a storyline, although it appears so. And then again now, as I said, the mystic aspect of it being the metaphor and the esoteric nature of it, if you don't keep that in mind, you're going to lock you off. You're going to take you off track for sure.
Where do you think the misconception comes in with the Bible and the story it's trying to tell?
Well, when I say storyline, it is obvious that you have a family lineage. Even if you don't begin at Adam, let's begin after the flood, the new beginning. So Noah now is this new being, and Noah, through his generation, through his lineage, we find ourselves Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Then it spreads off into different nations. Of course, the Bible seems to concentrate on Shem, and then through the lineage of Shem, you find Abraham, and through the lineage of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the children of Israel. Through the children of Israel, it concentrates on certain tribes, the Levi and the Judah specifically. You don't hear too much about Naphtali. You don't hear too much maybe of Issachar. The Bible concentrates on Judah. The Bible concentrates on Levi. Moses is from Levi, Aaron and Miriam, Levi, David, Solomon, Judah. And of course, this lineage of Judah is very key in the whole biblical story. So it's as if it's a path you're following, and it leads you straight to the Messiah, to the Christ. And then I have other episodes that even go beyond the pages of the Bible, where you could even go into Ethiopia, and then you hear about the same lineage of Judah spilling out of the Bible, trickling into Ethiopia, and the story continues. So as I said, yes, there is a chronological order to it, but you still have to keep in mind that the Bible is not fully literal, you know. And in fact, I will repeat, the esoteric parts of the Bible to me are much more important than even the literal aspects. So when you read it without considering the metaphorical part of it, it can knock you off track. So, for example, when you're speaking about the building of the Temple of Solomon, I always like to relate that to the same lineage that brings you to Haile Selassie I. Because Haile Selassie I, according to the history that we've been taught, is of the lineage of Solomon. Now, in the Bible, the Christ, the Messiah himself, said that he was going to break down the Temple of Solomon and build it up in 3 days. Now, that never happened. If you read the Bible, Christ never came with a hammer and mash up the temple and then get some man and say, let's start mix some concrete quick because we only have 3 days to build it back. That never happened. So obviously, that was a symbolic gesture he was making. Now, the Temple of Solomon is the temple that holds the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant is symbolic of the presence of God. Now, I am saying that the temple represents a human being. That is why, according to the book of Chronicles, it says that the temple was completed on the 23rd day of the 7th month. Now, of course, that may be a different calendar, but it's mystic. That's why the Bible is so esoteric, that in this modern Julian calendar, the Gregorian calendar that we use, the 23rd day of the 7th month just mystically aligns with the 23rd day of July, wherein that's the birthday of, I would say, the Temple of Solomon, or the house that Solomon built. You know, that's why Christ said he could destroy the temple, because he wasn't speaking of the building, he was speaking of his flesh. You know, his physical being that was related to Solomon. So I'm saying all of that to say, even in the New Testament, when you read about the Christ figure, and I would borrow a page right here from the Nation of Islam, that there is a certain percentage of the story of Christ, or let's just use the term for conversation's sake, Jesus, which is historical, And then there's another percentage, whether it be 75 or 25 or 50-50, but there's another percentage of the story of that Messiah that is prophetic, meaning it's speaking of something to come. So that is why when you read it from beginning to end as if you're just reading this long story, not knowing where the prophetic comes in and the history sits down, you can get, again, you could get run off of the track without understanding it.
So within the Gutenberg, within this version of the Bible, and they're having hands in the Bible, you think that's where the misconception comes in with the alignment of the story of the Bible and the chronological order that they are claiming that it is written in from Genesis to Revelation. The storyline that they have in the Bible, you're saying it's from original. It has an originality to it, a foundation which was happening, factual. That's what you're saying.
Well, what I'm saying is this: my perspective on the Bible. Now, there's a history that follows the Bible.
Yes.
Not the history in the Bible, the history of the Bible, where it come around. And we are supposed to believe that the Torah, the Pentateuch, the 5 books of Moses plus the rest of the Old Testament was written in Aramaic and Hebrew. We are also supposed to believe, this is history as it has been given to us now, that in about 285 BC, the king Ptolemy, some people say Ptolemy because it's actually spelled with a P, but in English you don't really pronounce the P, but Ptolemy or Ptolemy, you know, from the Ptolemy or Ptolemy family that came from Alexander. So when Alexander invaded Kemet or Egypt in 331 BC, after he died, his generals took over, and the Ptolemy or the Ptolemy family was one of them. So the first Ptolemy now, what he did, he was the one that actually created the Serapis figure. Many of you would hear about Serapis, where he took the god Asar, also known as Osiris, and kind of mixed it up with another deity known as Apis and some other European fables, and created this being known as Serapis, and he forced the Kemetic priests to administer to this new deity or new god that he created, Serapis. So what the Ptolemies or the Ptolemies did, they literally took the ancient scrolls, literal scrolls from Kemet, and placed them at the library at Alexandria. Now the library of Alexandria was really just an annex to a bigger temple that they call the museum. The museum is not spelled exactly like museum, but it's very close. In fact, that's where the word museum comes from the museum. The museum was also called before that the temple of, I think is one of the gods from Rome, Diophil, one of these gods. But the point is now, they took all of the scrolls and brought them into the museum. If you even Google the museum, you would literally see artwork, not Kodak moments, artwork of the translators of the scrolls that supposedly came from Jerusalem. Because according to the history, Ptolemy II or Ptolemy II brought 70 translators, or 72 translators from Jerusalem, and they came to Egypt, Kemet, and they locked themselves inside of this temple that was filled with all the Kemetic scrolls. This is a fact. This history that I'm giving is the history that even contemporary history would verify, that they came from Jerusalem and they translated the Hebrew text into what is known as the Septuagint. Now the Septuagint is basically considered the mother of the modern day Bible, because what the Septuagint really is, it's a Greek translation of the ancient Hebrew Torah, the Septuagint. But what I am saying now is that how mystic it is that when you observe, what I am saying is that when you observe the ancient history, they will tell you that they went into the temple, the same temple at Alexandria, and they were locked away for a specific amount of time, and they came out of this temple with a book called the Septuagint. Now remember, this is a fact, that the temple that they were in was filled with Kemetic scrolls, was filled with the writings that came off of the walls of the pyramid texts, the Perhem Heru, the coffin text, all of these writings, the story of Aman, the stories of Kepra, the stories of Nu, the creational story of Sekhmet, whatever, all of these stories were written on scrolls, whether it be in the different, the hieroglyph of the day, or the Medunetta, or you also have the demonic script, or even when it came down to the Coptic script. But the point is that these 72 so-called professors, high people from Jerusalem, went into this room that was filled with all of these Kemetic scrolls, and they came out with one book named the Septuagint. And we are taught that this Septuagint is a translation of the Hebrew Torah. We've never been taught that it's a translation of the Egyptian scrolls that were in the same room that they were translating. But now, mystic, when you get Inspector Gadget on the case now, you cannot find no Torah nowhere. There is no Torah written in Hebrew that can be dated older than the Septuagint. Now, it may exist. Maybe some rich, I said witch, but maybe some rich, Englishman has it, in his bathroom somewhere, and he reads it when he goes to do what he has to do. But as far as in the eye of the public, no one can really put their hand on a Torah that is dated older than the Septuagint. Rather worse, written in Hebrew, and say, look, the book here that the Septuagint was translated from. But for sure, the temple at Alexandria, which they eventually burnt down, we know for a fact historically that that temple held all of the ancient scrolls, some of which still exist today in museums. That's why when you go into the scrolls, the stories in the scrolls are very similar to a lot of the stories in the Bible. Only maybe name has changed and the story has been configured a bit, but you could see it's the same story. And one of the key stories, we could talk about it as we go along, is the story of Noah,
Was most of the African stories, were they myth or were they factual, most of these stories?
I'm going to coin a phrase here. A lot of them are factual myths. Yeah, I just made that up, and I'll tell you why. Because what we do is that the whole thing about the allegory, we use, it's like the secret sauce. We use allegory for everything. We use allegory or myth then, or the mythos, because certain people argue that mythology and the mythos are two different things. Some people argue that there's no mythology in the Bible. I mean, people that are not Bible fanatics, because to them a mythology has to do with the birth of a god and the death of a god. And as far as God, Elohim, Yahweh in the Bible doesn't speak of this God from a birth aspect, only maybe when you make Jesus God. Because you could look at it like that too, you could make Jesus God, outside of religion. You could literally do that. So in the real sense of the word mythology, if you really take it from what it's supposed to really mean, according to the professors that teach mythology, the Bible is not mythology, but they will consider it mythos, which now, if you read Primordial Man by Churchward, Albert Churchward, he really breaks down what mythos is and the difference between mythos and mythology. So the mythos is, to be honest, what we consider mythology, a story that is given an esoteric expression of something. Now, what I'm saying is that as an African people, like Anansi, for example, in Antigua, we have this phrase where we say, oh, Nancy's story, Nancy's story. It comes from the Anansi principle. In Ghana, the story says, Anansi owns all stories, meaning that we used to express, listen to this, we expressed our mythology, we expressed our history. Even our history, we express it in the esoteric form. We use instruments, we use poetry, we use song and dance, and we even use theater. So that is why now, for example, let me use a quick, coming closer to home example. Marcus Messiah Garvey did a play where in the play he had a king and a queen get crowned in Ethiopia. Now, even as Ras, when we coming up, we always heard Marcus Garvey say, look to the east for the coming of a black king. Now, I've seen in certain historical books, I can cite the books too, like there's a book written by a German brother, Von Schick is his title. I can't remember his first name. And in that book, the book is entitled Rastafari and Jamaica from 1930 to 1999. And in that book, Von Schick quoted that Marcus Garvey made that speech on the 27th day of March, 1928 in Ellis Park, Jamaica. And he said to his audience, look to the east to Ethiopia where Prince shall be crowned king. So that I can cite that. But most ones still keep to their facts or hold to their guns that Marcus Garvey never said so. But he did a play. And in the play, Marcus Garvey had a king and a queen get crowned in Ethiopia. Now, if we understand African tradition, Marcus Garvey saying so, or Marcus Garvey putting on a play, the play is just as good as him saying so, because that's how we work in Africa. We would express our myth in play form, music form, song and dance form, poetry. We would express religion in the same way, and believe it or not, answering the question now, even history, even our history, we would express it in allegorical form. So the Epic of Gilgamesh from the Sumerian tablets. Now the Epic of Gilgamesh is mythos as well. It's not a real story. But if you study certain professors like Professor Shock and these ones, he's the one that redated the Sphinx or the Hermaket, and he used the watermarks that you could see on the Sphinx to prove that there was an ancient flood that came across this region here. Now, I'm just saying that to say the Epic of Gilgamesh, it is mythos. If you read it good, it is mythos. You could see the allegorical aspects of it. But the point is that it could be an allegory of a history that really took place. So this is where some of us will lose it, because we'll be quick to say, oh, Jonah never gets swallowed by no fish. I agree, Jonah didn't get, that means that's impossible. But that doesn't take away from the fact that Jonah may have been in the belly of the beast. I mean, sometimes even when we fly go America, say, boy, me go in the belly of the beast. If you get in a little problem and the police hold you up, you say, boy, that man have me in the belly of the beast for the weekend, And now, in our ancient time, if we were supposed to write that historically, we may have written it, or not even write, we would have glyphed it. What do you call it when we spray? Graffiti it, as if you were swallowed by a fish, or swallowed by a big crocodile, or swallowed by a whale, or swallowed by a beast. That's the way you would express it in a mythos form, but it's history that really happened. But what happened now, a few thousand years after, a brainwashed people that has been enslaved, robbed of self and robbed of, name and language and everything, they read that story and they preach it as if it's literal gospel, that this man gets swallowed by a big crocodile and he in the belly of the crocodile for 3 days, and then the crocodile, fish, whale, whatever you choose, spit him out. Again, it may be a true story, but not true in that literal sense, because we are known for writing our religious outlook, theology, and even our history in allegorical form. We're known for that. And Nancy owns all stories.
Explain the difference in allegories and myth.
Yeah, the allegory is like, the allegory is the method of expressing the myth. Because usually when you look for the definition of allegory, it usually involves singing, dancing, or even a play form. Just like how the term allegory sounds. It sounds like a dance. So that's the allegory. The allegory expresses the myth, basically.
So, have you ever come across the word allegories in the Bible?
Yeah, it's not to say catch me there, but it's either in Galatians or Ephesians. I'm not too sure. I'm sure your audience, those in your audience. I mean, I'm not wrong,
There's no wrong and right thing.
Ain't wrong and right here, but I know it's in Galatians. If somebody really wants to know, they can read all the Galatians or all the Ephesians. I think it's chapter 11, verse 4, or chapter 4, verse 11. There's a twist like that, but in one of these chapters, I'm positive it's there. Most people know it's there. the writer of the book, supposedly St. Paul, he was actually highlighting Abraham, the story of Abraham, Sarah, Haggai, and not Isaac, but Ishmael. And he was speaking of, Abraham getting the word from God that he's going to bring a child, but he went to Sarah and said, man, what's going on? Sarah said, listen, I want a baby. Go into Hagar. And he listened to Sarah and he went into Hagar and Ishmael was born. According to St. Paul, this is an allegory. These are the exact words too. This is an allegory. Now, that's interesting, because an allegory, as we just said, is well, at least the way that we look at it is something that is not literal. It's symbolic. But I am saying that we as an African people, we are known to even express literal things in symbolic ways. So that is why I've come to the conclusion that all of the Bible is allegory. Everything in it is allegory. And some of it is history. That's how I put it.
Some Rastas' claim is, why can't you find the grave of all the characters in the Bible, but you can find the tomb of Imhotep, which is 2,500 years before the Bible?
Nobody at all. And what's worse too, the Bible is very descriptive of where man bury and so. Who buried in the cave at Hamath and who was, this and that. That's interesting, But, well, let me say, enough respect to the elders, the ancient ones of Rastafari, whoever may be listening, to WADADLI-VYBZ and maybe watching as well, wherever further field this may go. And most of the elders really stay firm to the biblical scriptures. Not just on no allegorical level, they literally hold fast to that concept. Now, as you just said, there's no discovery. You cannot say you found Isaac tomb or Jacob tomb. And as I said, these are people, some of them, the Bible describe where they've been buried. Nobody had to, no archaeologists have to guess nothing. The Bible said this place, that place, whatever. Now, I have a little theory. I don't know, I use the term little, but I have a theory as it relates to the landmass spoken of in the Bible and the landmass that geographically, let me say, geopolitically is considered the land that the Bible talking about. So I'm talking about Palestine. Geopolitics we gone into. 1948, Ashkenazi Jews, that's where we are here. Balfour Agreement from 1914, 15, whatever. Harry Truman come in and ratify, and Israel became a state in the 1940s. Good. Now we are supposed to believe that the land of Palestine is the land that is spoken of in the Bible from Dan to Beersheba, where you have the divisions of all the different tribes. Now, according to the same Bible, the land that God gave Abraham then, in the book of Genesis, chapter 15, this land was described from the river Euphrates to the river in Egypt. Now, the river Euphrates to the river in Egypt is all of Arabia, all, plus most of Northeast Africa, because you got to keep in mind that the river in Egypt, you have the Blue Nile that flows out of Ethiopia and the White Nile, as they call it. The White Nile flows out of, as they call it, Lake Victoria or Lake Enzania, wherein in Ethiopia the Blue Line comes out of Lake Tana, and they meet together in Khartoum and form the Nile that goes northwards down into Egypt. So the point I'm making now, according to the Bible now, so the historians and the professors and the archaeologists, they don't have to try to deny what I'm going to say. I'm just using the Bible as a reference point for conversation's sake. And for conversation's sake, according to the Bible, this is the landmass that Abraham got. Northeast Africa plus Arabia, straight up. And now, in Deuteronomy, it was given to Moses that this land is going to be expanded. So in Joshua chapter 1 now, you see the expansion from the river Euphrates to the Great Sea. Now I'm getting to a point, Now the Great Sea, I'm of the opinion that the Great Sea is the Atlantic Ocean. One of the reasons why is because in Ezekiel 47, Ezekiel is describing the same land too. And Ezekiel describes the Great Sea as being to the west and also to the south. He actually used that term. And also, A-L-S-O, also to the south. Now, when you look at the map today of the Middle East, the place that is referred to as Israel today, most people religiously will tell you that the Mediterranean Sea, which is to the north of Africa, the Mediterranean Sea is the Great Sea. Now I'm saying that if the Mediterranean Sea is the Great Sea, it should also be to the south coast of Israel. Now the Mediterranean Sea is not to the south coast of Israel. In fact, Israel does not really have a lengthy south coast. You hardly hear about this south coast of Israel because it's just a little strip. It actually is tipped by a gulf, I think it's the Gulf of Elbit or Albert, which runs from the Red Sea. The point I'm making here, brother, is this. And even the next point, Ezekiel says that there's a sea directly to the east of Israel. That's in the book of Ezekiel. There is the East Sea, which really threw the whole thing away. Because in Israel, Palestine today, there's no sea, nowhere close. There's land, there's Jordan, there's Iraq, you're gone into Tibet and China. So there's no sea whatsoever, not even close to the east of Israel when the Bible describes that you're supposed to go to Israel, to its east coast and jump off into water. Now what I'm saying is that we've been hoodwinked, straight up. We are to believe, a person may say, okay, well, the Israel today is just a small bit and it can get bigger. No, but if you look at the Israel today, if you go to Israel, you know, every landmass that the Bible speaks of, they find some way to fit it into that little land, you know. So when you hear the term from Dan to Beersheba, that means the whole land. In Palestine, you have Dan all the way down to Beersheba. So they're trying to tell you psychologically, this is the Bible land. But the Bible itself, when it describes the land geographically, that's not what it describes. It describes a much greater landmass. The reason why I went all around the world, my brother, to bring this answer is this. You may be seeking for the tomb of Abraham and seeking for the tomb of Joseph and the tomb of whoever. And you say, well, look, we can't find nobody tomb around here, no, this something wrong. But you may be looking in the wrong place. You know, it's like a treasure hunt. You know, you get a treasure map and X mark the spot and all of that. X don't mark no spot in Palestine. The treasure map is the Bible. And when you open the Bible and you read the treasure map, that's not where the treasure is. From the river Euphrates to the Great Sea. So you have now all of Africa plus Arabia. Back to the allegory. I honestly believe the Bible story is a great allegory of some ancient African history, but in allegorical form. So it's not going to be wise to try to take the Bible and balance it with history. We try to do that too much, like to get every date correct and say, okay, this happened this day and that day. No, when we write allegory, you know, it's timeless. That's the mystic with metaphor. So you could write about one metaphorical character, and this metaphorical character, you can see him in 10 different people over a different period of time, just replaying itself as if it's God wrote this life into him. That's why we can use Osiris and show you the similarity with Osiris and Haile Selassie. How the same 72 that came to the coronation of Osiris, the same 72 that came to the coronation of Haile Selassie. Remember, it was 72 people that also translate the Septuagint too. That's why they call it Septuagint. Septuagint really means 70. But it really was really 72 that came. So just the number 72, that's an allegorical number too. 72 plus 72 is 144. Allegory again, 144,000. So it's numbers. The Bible is a numbers book. They even have a book in the Bible named Numbers. You know, the Bible is an etymological book. Even in English, there's some hidden codes within the Bible. So I'm saying all that to say, if you're looking for the remains of somebody that you expect to find, I'm saying that looking in little old Palestine is the wrong place. Now Palestine, so-called Israel, is a part of the land described in the Bible, but a very, 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 very small part. In fact, in 2012, they found they found a little kind of medallion with the inscription of, here is the king of Israel, King Hezekiah. Okay, so Hezekiah's name was in it in Aramaic, not Amharic, Aramic, which is like an ancient form of Hebrew. But what was also interesting is on Hezekiah's seal, he had the Kepra beetle with wings and the sun, a Egyptian symbol, and ankhs and all kind of thing. They found the seal of Jezebel as well. Jezebel's seal also had on Egyptian symbols. So why is it that these Israelite characters, you finally find something to prove that they exist, Hezekiah and Jezebel, but both of their emblems have on strong Egyptian symbols. So I'm just saying that people are looking for the Jerusalem and Bethlehem. And I'm saying it's just like the Ethiopians have this theology of Christ being born in Ethiopia. But then the Bible does say that Bethlehem is to the west of the river Nile. 2 Chronicles chapter 33. That Bethlehem, or the city of David, is to the west of the Gwan, which is the river Nile. So I'm just saying, knowledge is good, you know. But to understand what you know is better. Because we have a lot of knowledge, but sometimes we're not able to bring a proper understanding of all these things we know. So to me, I'm not saying they will ever find any tomb of none of these characters, you know. Because even the names, a lot of these names are not African names neither. So even if the character existed, I am very positive his name was not Joseph. I'm over positive his name was not, what else, Luke and Mark and them kind of people. Obviously not. If that story was taken off of somebody real, even if you find that person, you would not even be able to recognize him. Because for sure, he not going to name no John, and he not going to name Peter. He not going to have none of these names.
Was there a direct story from Ethiopia or Africa or along the River Nile that was speaking about the same story of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob? Was there a story that anyone that ever researched or you have ever heard about that there was a same storyline? I know that they're saying that there was a storyline of the Mary and the birth of Christ and the Immaculate Conception. We have this story before in Africa, and they're saying that this story in Africa also wasn't even factual; it was myth also. And so, have you ever heard of a story in Africa that speaks about Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, the way how the Bible speaks about it?
Not like that. They have, I think there's a king, one of the king, Imhotep, not Imhotep. There's a specific king where there's a documentary called The Lord of the Rings. I'm sure many people have seen it. And in that documentary, the narrator, which is a woman, was going to lengths to try to explain that Abraham is one of the Kemetic mummies that they found. I can't remember in detail all her points, but I mean, it was an argument. She was hitting some all right points, you know. I mean, it's not something that to say that I uphold exactly what she was saying. Well, a lot of people try that. They like to take Kemetic characters and try to line them up with Bible. Like Akhenaten or Thutmose. Thutmose has become Moses. Some people say Akhenaten was Moses because Akhenaten had an exodus from even not just from Thebes to Amman. No. According to some historians, Akhenaten led an exodus out of Egypt, crossing the Red Sea, going towards Arabia. So obviously a person that is very zealous of biblical works and yet still of history, maybe just for their own comfort, will try to amalgamate these two stories together. I know that kind of feeling, man, because you want to be right on both sides, you know. I try not to play around with them kind of things too much, you know. It has to be very clear. For example, the Noah story, to me, that is extremely clear, meaning that the story of the Nu in Kemet, Nu Naunet. Naunet is like a combination of both. No, Nu is, let me get it straight. Naunet is the female. The Nun is both male and female, and the Nu is the male. Now, in the story of Nu is said to be a creator god. So when you see Nu and his wife, Naunet, or the Nun as they're called collectively, you usually see them either in water or looking like water. So they're painted blue, and you see the waves inside of them. Now, when you watch Nu, there's a glyph where you see Nu carrying the solar bark, B-A-R-Q-E. And on the solar bark, Nu is carrying 8 characters on the bark. And some of the characters have animal figures, the hawk head, and Kepra is one of these characters. In fact, Kepra is at the center of it. So it's almost like 7 plus Kepra, and Kepra is carrying the sun. Now, the story of Nu, an allegory, is really the story of creation. Nobody's arguing that Nu, there was this great flood and Nu and whatever. And mystically, we all know the story of Noah now in the Bible. Noah's story is a creation story as well. This is where literalism and symbolism, this is why it's important to differentiate. Why? Because if you tell the regular person, a person that is, very strong, hold strong to the Bible, that Noah's story is a creation story, they'll be quick to tell you no. No, nothing goes so. I said, why not? God destroyed the world and told Noah to replenish the earth. He told Adam to replenish the earth too. Now, replenish means to plenish it again. Now, if Adam and Eve were the first, and this is a brand new thing that just started, a new idea, we open a new business, entrepreneur, Adam would not have to replenish. He just had to plenish. Now, from Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 to verse 2, if you read it, it says in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. I think verse 2 says, and the earth was void and without form. Now, many people that study with theologians will argue that there's a big gulf between verse 1 and verse 2. There's a big gulf. This is an accepted debate. It's not necessarily me saying this. This is an accepted school of thought. That from verse 1 in Genesis 1 to verse 2, they're like eons. A time gulf between there where the earth was perfect and then somehow it became without form and void. And that is why in Genesis now, the character that is known as Elohim create a new earth, and Elohim made male and female. That's why in chapter 2 now, you have Yahweh coming and doing his own creation now. He didn't create male and female. In Genesis 2, Yahweh created Adam and Eve. It's Yahweh that created Adam and Eve. In Genesis chapter 1, Elohim created male and female. That's why you have this thing about how Adam can have a son that went to this land and meet a whole city. People doing business and commercial, and he marry a wife and all of that, Now, what I'm getting to here is that in a lot of ancient science, the Mayans, etc., they always talk about the fifth worlds. We're supposed to be living in the fifth world. Now, if you read the Bible good, if Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 was one world and the world was destroyed, and then Elohim created another world where he made male and female, that's 2 worlds. And then now we have Yahweh, he come and create the next world. It's 2 different creations in chapter 1 and 2. Nobody can deny this. Even the time space of the things that were created have even switched in chapter 1 and chapter 2. Plants and animals, and so the dates switch literally in chapter 1 and chapter 2. So it's undeniable that there's something different with the creation in 1 and 2. So that's 3 creations now. Then now, God destroyed the world again. 4th creation, Noah come on the scene. Now Noah in the allegory is a God figure. We watch too much TV. TV bad, TV really mashes up, man. Them old movie when Noah have on the bathrobe, looking up in the sky. I can actually see it in my heavens as I'm talking to you. Noah, the old dusty white man with the long beard. Noah, the man dropped the thing and he looking up like he frightened. That they feed us that for years, and Superbook and Flying House. So it fill our heads. So even when you talk about Noah's Ark, you have to see that big boat and the 2 lions coming down and the 2 elephants. It's hard to scrub them things out your mind. Adam and Eve, just say Adam and Eve. You see, even if you paint them black, they're still naked in a little garden and have leaf in front of them. Okay, the point, getting straight to the point now, is that Noah in Arabic is Nu. The Quran referred to Noah as Nu. That's his name in Islam, Nu. Okay, it's quite interesting that the same name that Nu have in this is Islamic faith is the exact name of Naunet Nun, the Nu in Kemet, the same name, Nu. Noah in Arabic is Nu. And I wouldn't call him Noah, but there's a character in Kemet that's doing a very similar thing to Noah. And his name is Nu too.
Well, would you say now that then if Africa has the oldest birth of religion or Christianity, would you not think that they would get these names Nu to align them from Africa?
Now, of course, but you see, what I'm saying now is that may not be so in the case of the Quran, no, but what I'm saying is that if you notice, okay, we argue about books then.
Yes.
Which books are older.
Yes.
But sometimes we bring up the argument just to justify ourselves. I'll show you why. The oldest known religious writing is supposedly the pyramid text. Now, a lot of people talk about the Egyptian Book of the Dead because it sounds fancy to say, man, all of these writings came from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. It sounds good, you know, but no disrespect to no one, but you can tell when somebody really did their studying or they're just hearing something somebody saying they feel to say too. Why I'm saying that is that the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Per-Hemeru, which is not just for Ani, there are many Egyptian books of the dead, the story is similar to the coffin text. Now the coffin text is older than the Egyptian Book of the Dead, but it's the same story. The pyramid text is older than the coffin text, but again, you still have the similar story. The characters may be a bit different and there may be a slight variation, but it's the same stories coming down the line, you know, and we're known for that. Now I'm saying, when you come to the Bible now, not necessarily the King James, let us say the Ethiopian Bible, the stories are still the same. That's why we can even open the new revised version, no matter how much time they revise it, you know. We can still read the story and say, but hey, read this and read this hieroglyph. It's not the same thing. But I'm saying, I know we'd want to charge the Bible for treason and the Quran for the same. And I'm not pretending to be their lawyer. But I'm looking at it realistically. We are a people that we are known for revising our work. We're known for that. We change our books over time. So that's why you have the pyramid text, and then we turn it to the coffin text. Then we have the papyrus of Ani, and as I said, the characters even change. Their names change. We draw them differently. And even the story might have a little twist, but it's the same creation story. It's the same story playing over itself because we are an esoteric people. Bible and Quran again. So that's why it's not a surprise to see that Noah, that carried the ark. And if you check ark and bark, if you take the B off of bark, you get ark. Noah carried the ark, and Nu carried the bark. And the Noah in Islam, his name is Nu, the exact name. Because then again, language is key. People tell us we get language from the people from Carthage, the Phoenician people. That's where you get the term phonics. But the Phoenician scripts are very important. You do not have a civilization unless you have a script. A lot of the languages that we play with don't have script, you know. Even English and so, they don't really have a script. The script is not the alphabet, you know. So a lot of these languages, even the Syriac language, which is considered to be the mother of the Far East languages, as far as the Middle East languages, pardon me, as far as even Arabic, Aramic, and even our own Ethiopian, Ge'ez and Amharic. But I will tell you that Ge'ez is a literal cursive form of hieroglyph. So is Coptic. They come from the Demotic and the Heretic. So I bring in all of that to show you that all of these languages, just like the religions, are babies or children to the ancient African tongue. And it didn't begin in Egypt too, you know. That's the next thing. Not because we say in Egypt. Egypt has remained as evidence of our advancement. But even these same Egyptians clearly tell you that this power that they have came from up the River Nile in Kush, Sudan, and Ethiopia, you know. So depending on what angle you're looking at it, it's all the same story just coming through the ages. So the Quran could be innocent. Even the Bible in its original form could be an innocent expression of our allegory. But it would look criminal now, especially when the preacher man and the slave master give it to us and tell King James to endorse it, and then we read it a sort of way and we just literalize everything. It would be easy to see why a conscious person wanted to dash it in the fire.
Well, I think the problem, what I would say the problem seems to be, is that some people do not see Africa and the spiritual stories are literally taken, and some people see them as it really happened. So with it really happening, they would see the Bible as literal. But if you do not see the stories from ancient time as literal, researching or going on research, doing research, you have here many scholars saying going to Africa to research that the Africans has always have spiritual stories and they use them to guide them. But they are not literally. So with a lot of researchers going now to find this information and bringing it now to a masses of people, like you can find like Ivan van Sertimer and quite a few, Dr. Sheikh and Diop, and quite a few, Dr. Ben, Yosef Buchanan. You can find a few of these researchers going to research and finding that there are no clues of what the Bible is saying. And I think this is where some of the Rastafari members are saying now they are looking at the Bible, because one time Rastafari used to burn the Bible real hard, and then they went back and said, you know what, we're not to burn the Bible, and someone's hold on to the Bible and someone. But I think it was because of the information at the time. Now that the information is granted to everyone in this time, and even some would say that Haile Selassie said that within the time of the information, you would not be able to stop the fruits that is coming within the time of the information, because the information, we're living in that time of information. So some will propel their argument along that line, saying that this is a time of information, and the ones who are saying taking the Bible literal would be the ones that did not have the information at the time. So now that the ones who have the information that can put it together and say, listen, we are aligning Haile Selassie with the Bible, and it's not literal. So there was no Shiva, there was no Abraham, there was no Isaac. So how can you find Selassie in the Bible? What is your take on Haile Selassie now being from the line of Judah? And now someone is saying that there was no Judah in Ethiopia. We're not even going to Egypt. We're going up the River Nile where it started. There was no Judah. The first time they heard about Judah was from Judaism. So within the first length of Christianity, where you have the early Christians, the Protestant, then you have the Judaism, Hebrew, and then you have these ones that they're calling themselves, that you were just speaking about just now.
Islam, you mean?
Islam. So within all those four groups, Rastafari ones is saying that they got this story, because if you notice, it's all just the same, just that they changed names. They got it from Africa. And with getting it from Africa, they changed it and made it look literal to play a game. Now, this is the question again. How was your take on Haile Selassie and Judah and the stories of the Bible? Do you see him as in the lineage of Sheba and Solomon?
Well, what is interesting there, I was looking at a video with Yogi Raj. I was telling you about it before. Yogi Raj is the man that said he met Haile Selassie in 1982, for those who may not know, who wrote the book. The audio book is the audio book, so I guess he didn't write it. He spoke the book, Wings of Love. And in that book, he talked about Haile Selassie. He visited Haile Selassie in England in 1982. I'm sure a lot of your audience has at least heard that clip. And he was kind of playing with words there. He was saying that the Queen of Shiva was referred to as the Queen of Shiva. I said, okay, interesting. That's his point now. That's not something I'm bringing down as if take that from me and whatever. I would have to, go deeper into that for myself before I could just confirm that. I've definitely picked up the mystic between the names Sheba and Shiva. and understanding how you could exchange consonants and these things, and even vowels, well, you know, it's not that far-fetched. And the link he was trying to make was that she had a strong link in India, which is well known, from Arabia to India, and you know, the Shiva culture of India. So he was putting all of that together as one. Now I try, although I do that myself, I try not to do too much of them kind of things there. Not that it may not be valid, but you don't want to do too much of the mixing up thing and then you spoil the pot. I'll show you what I mean by that. If the Bible was to drop off of the earth or the Quran was to disappear, that ain't going to change nothing, at least from how my philosophical outlook is. You know, why? Is because the Bible, you know, came in almost like training wheels to us, straight up. Whether it has been plagiarized or whether it's the facts. Okay, let's just say the Bible is 100% facts and is the holy book. Okay, good. But even if the Bible wasn't written, I have other holy books I could refer to. I would admit that the time when the Bible was on top of the world in the conscious realms, many of us, we never heard about none of them other holy books. You know, we were, like, for example, all of these Kemetic talks. It's just within the last couple of years, a lot of these things have been discovered, you know. And they discovered the tomb of Tutankhamun. When they discovered the tomb of Tutankhamun, Haile Selassie was already king of kings, you know. In fact, that's the first place he went before he went to Jerusalem, then on to England during the time of exile. The tomb of Tutankhamun, you know. So that means Leonard P. Howell then done start to say, hey, the prophecy is fulfilled, the Lion of Judah. And them time Tutankhamun tomb wasn't discovered yet. At least the king didn't visit it yet, I should say. Let me put it that way. The king didn't visit the tomb of Tutankhamun as yet. The reason why I'm bringing out all of this now is that, and they're still discovering things, is that when you observe the scripture itself, the Bible, and the storyline, as I said in it, and since you brought in the Quran, I'm trying to say that we have advanced now. I know people are going to say, boy, the king say he glory in the Bible, and you know what I mean, this and that. And I'm not at this moment taking away nothing from it, but I'm just saying that even if it's a holy book, there are other holy books. I'm being very clear. And I will even point to the Quran as a holy book. I could explain why, but I wouldn't force that into this segment. For sure, the pyramid text, that's the oldest writings. The other text that I mentioned there, the book by the Imhotep. I mean, they have so many old books that have similar writings. The Shabaka stone, you know, the Zepi of the first time creation story. These are slabs, stones, obelisks with stories on them, and all of them are similar. So I'm just saying that the standard that we reach right now, we can do without some of the holy books. In the same way that we never read the Papyrus of Ani and we're reading the Bible, well, we can go read the Papyrus of Ani now and give the Bible a rest. If you are sound, that's not going to change nothing, you know. So it's not, well, me personally, it's not as if I'm dogmatic, like I got to sleep on the Bible like it's my pillowcase, you know. No, for sure. No, because I know for sure that it is not the origin. The stories, I just explained that the origin of the Bible, according to even people that defend the Bible, came out of a building that was filled with Egyptian scrolls. Nobody denying that. That's something, is not my philosophy, that's an accepted philosophy. But they're trying to tell you that the Bible didn't come from the scrolls. It came from the Hebrew Torah. All right, good argument. Go for the Hebrew Torah, that the Septuagint, because you have the Septuagint. People will tell you the original Septuagint is here, there, and whatever. Okay, where's the original Torah? The oldest complete Bible written in Torah, written in Hebrew, is the Leningrad Codex, and that's 1000 AD, or 1000 years ago. So when it comes to facts now, when it comes to the literal manuscript, that is where it lies. So with His Majesty now, saying all that to say, it's obvious that His Majesty had a father, had a grandfather, had a great-grandfather, great-great-great, go up the line. Now, if you follow that lineage of Haile Selassie I, are you going to run into, bam, Solomon, and say, oh, sorry, and look over his head and say, oh, look, David there. And then look over David's head and say, hey, Jesse. And then go way back. Okay. Some people say that Haile Selassie's lineage come from the King Ori. I'm sure you've heard about the King Ori. But then again, now people argue that King Ori was the 33rd son of Adam. So that brings you back into the same basket again. If Ori is the 33rd son of Adam, I'm sure you may have come across that. And you're going back to Adam again. It's basically the same kettle of fish you jump back into again. So the separation of the king from all of this, even if you do, it cannot change the reality of the lineage that the king came from. What I like to stand firm on, and I don't think I would ever drop this. I would never drop this. I think it would be disingenuous of me to drop this. The Ethiopians say that they have a record. They have it on sheepskin, cowskin, cloth. They glyph it too, where they can carry you and show you their father, their father's father, their father's father's father. I mean the regular Ethiopian monks that live in the hills. And
there you can go and see this now?
You can see that.
Yes, and so you have seen it?
No, not me personally, like as such with my eyes.
This is something you are telling me that you have heard?
I'm more depending on writings and documentaries.
Okay.
Yeah, you know. Because remember, Ethiopia, it's almost like the griots or griots in Senegal and Gambia. You know, okay, let's, for example, the griots in Senegal and Gambia. Please, you know, what's the word? You entertain me for a second here, because I want my point to be clear. Of course. The griots in Senegal and Gambia, now they just go and play on the thing there. I remember they call it the ark or the and there's a story they're telling you, you know. These are the griot or the griots. Nothing written down. And they're giving you a story from 100 years ago, 400 years ago, singing it to you, same way we just do it allegory. They're telling you about Mansa Musa and something else, nothing written down. And what they're telling you is what has been passed down to them by their fathers, the griot before them. Ethiopia does the same thing. This is an African tradition. But what is mystic about the Ethiopians? They have written records. Even the same great Dr. Ben, he has the whole Ethiopian king list in his book. I think it's Africa and the, Africa and the Nile Valley Civilization, if I'm correct. But anyway, whichever book it is, Dr. Ben for sure has the whole Ethiopian king list. And what is interesting with this Ethiopian king list, it has some names that are directly linked to Kemetic kings. Amenhotep, this Hotep, that Amun, in the Ethiopian king list. But that only makes sense. Because if you're looking at a king list that is supposedly 3,000 years old, remember Ethiopia as the Ethiopia we know today, it's not just that, it has expanded and it got smaller. So obviously there would be a time when it encompassed Kush, where the Nubian kings used to rule. So you could understand why you see these Nubian kings' name in the Ethiopian king list, why you see these Kemetic kings' name in the Ethiopian king list.
But the same Dr. Ben would say that there was no Sheba, and there was no David, and there was no Solomon. These are just myths. But in his king list, he has none of these Sheba and David and Mary and all these, the lineage to bring you down to Solomon to get to Selassie, which is why I was asking you, if you are seeing his imperial majesty as from the lineage of Solomon. So you're saying that even though if you go back and you check and you check and you check and you run into Solomon, this is where you're at now. Even though you go back and check and you find there's a Solomon, what happens now?
I don't even think you're going to run into no Solomon, really. No, that's the point I'm making. I don't really think. No, and I got to start to seem as if I'm playing with the words now. But what I'm saying, before I start to play with the words, the history is that, why I brought up the history is that you don't always have to be a scholar in everything. I honestly believe we have to give the Ethiopians some credit. This is the point I'm making. Yes. I know we know plenty things and we read how much books. Yes. But listen, man, they have these people in Ethiopia. Even in Kemet and other parts of the world, they don't have the history so compact. There's this gulf in between. That's why they discover things in Egypt. And we're saying, wow, that's what was going on. But the Ethiopians have the history. Now you may say, boy, I mean, they believe the Ark of the Covenant come from nowhere and go on Lake Tana and whatever. But Ethiopians have that written down, you know, and tell you, well, this is where the Ark go first. And they have it written down and tell you after the ark leave here, you go here. And you have it written down and tell you end up in Axum, and that's where the ark is. Now, listen to my point here. Even if you don't believe in Moses and the ark and the 2 tablets that God write on stone, because remember when they say ark, that's what you see now. Moses in a mountain, God saying, thou shalt not 9 times, and remember 1 time, which is the Sabbath day. Put them 2 stones inside of this, the Ark of the Covenant and whatever, and he build the ark and then move through. All right, fair enough. We don't believe in no ark. No ark exists. Moses never exists. Okay, even if I was to hold firm with that, I honestly believe that the Ethiopians had something. Remember, the Ark of the Covenant is not the only ark, you know. They found an ark in the same Tutankhamun's tomb. And I made a mistake. Tutankhamun's tomb was discovered in 1920. So please pardon me for that. 1923, 1924. The king went there when he was going to Geneva to put Ethiopia in the League of Nations. So yes, I understand it. But I'm just showing you, they found an ark in the tomb of Tutankhamun that is the exact size as the Ark of the Covenant. The coffer in the Great Pyramid is the exact dimension of the same Ark of the Covenant in the Bible, you know. The term ark itself means the presence of God. So the ark that Noah built is not necessarily no boat. It's the presence of God. Moses, according to the Bible, when they say he sent him up the river in a basket, the Bible never said basket. That's the movie. The Bible says he was placed in an ark. So the term ark, you know, symbolism is very symbolic of the presence of God. So when the Ethiopians said that they had an ark that they carry here, there, and everywhere, even though you don't believe in an ark of the covenant, you have to give the Ethiopians some level of credit for the history that they've been keeping for so long. I don't expect that they're going to just lie to you. They must have had something that they were moving around. It's the same thing with the lineage of Solomon. Queen of Shiva left Ethiopia, went somewhere to the north, and came back with a child. Okay. They have this written down. You may not be able to prove it, and I may not be able to prove it. But what is the proof? What do we call proof? What do we call evidence? I think it's a shame that the Ethiopians have taken their time to keep this record, and we're going to just take the sheepskin and throw it away and say, no man, that's not good enough.
But what is this record?
We're waiting for somebody to come from Europe to dig up something and say, well, oh yeah, we find a slab of stone with Sheba name on it. But the Ethiopians don't keep the record so long.
But this record is not mentioned in the Bible.
No, they not.
And this record is not given. It's not given worldwide to every and everyone.
No.
This record was like a secret record. For my research,
In Ethiopia?
Yes, in my research, this was not a record that everyone could just get their hands on and do what they want to. And they had this record as very sacred.
But what I was saying, Ethiopia in general, even the common household would have the family record. Now, it's not like us, and so we didn't even know who our grandfather be and them stupidness, you know.
Right.
Them people has carried at least couple generations back, even if it's 500 years then.
Right.
At least that. Much less the king list.
So you're saying that you have to give them the credit for this king list. Why? Why would you give them credit for the king list?
Because that's how we do scholarly work, you know. We want evidence. We want what we call primary source. Yeah. So when the Ethiopians bring out the sheepskin with the names, I consider that primary source. I mean, we can twist it around.
Why would you use that king's list to defy Selassie being from the tribe of Judah?
No, okay, well, no, I didn't use that to say he was from the tribe of Judah in the term.
But you was using the king list within
to
that
show
line of question.
that he came. You could see the lineage that he came from.
Oh, so you're saying that there's no doubt that Selassie came from a lineage?
I would expect so as a human being.
But of course, I don't think that's the line of the question. Okay. I think the line of the question is Judah, Solomon, and Sheba.
Okay. The play of words coming now. You see, Sol Amon. You know, Sol means son. And Ammon mean Ammon. Now, I just said earlier that if you were to go to the land of Canaan, Palestine, and the Solomon Wailing Wall, where the man does do the prayer around the Wailing Wall, and they try to see if you can find Solomon bone somewhere around there, just as always, there's failure. You're never going to find it. Mm-hmm. Now, in Ethiopia, in Kemet, they have a king called Akhenaten, and they have the hymns to Akhenaten. This is one of the reasons people might say Akhenaten is Moses. If you look at Psalms 104, almost word for word, Psalms 104 is the hymns to Akhenaten. Psalm 104, which is said to be written by Moses, not David. Psalms 104 is the exact, almost word for word, at least verse for verse, of Akhenaten's hymn. I'm just saying, my good brother, Sol Aman is two words, the sun, Sol and Aman. They have kings in Kemet that carry that same name by definition. For example, Ra-Aman or Amun-Ra. Ra is the sun and Amun is Amun. Ra-Amun and Sol-Amun. Now again, you see, like what I'm telling you, these are some jewels I really usually keep for myself, you know. Why? Is because, you know, you're firm in yourself, you know, but you have to be careful how you put out information. Because what I'm sharing with you, I would say that's my own theological look on it. So I wouldn't really carry that to the courts and put that on the table for the jury to examine, you know. But I honestly believe it's a very good theory. That's my point. But to me, theories don't really win argument. Facts win argument. So I ain't going to go into a battle with that point there. You know, to kind of twist your head and say, well, Solomon is Ra-Aman. That's why I call it a play of words. But I honestly believe that I'm playing a good game. Meaning that His Majesty's lineage, mystically, that's why I said you see all these Kemetic names in his lineage. His lineage goes somewhere and it disappears somewhere in the dark. You know, and we guessing that Solomon may be in the dark and Sheba in the dark, but somebody in the dark. And I don't believe that the Ethiopians, through all these ages, would concoct a make-believe story that will have you coming down this dynastic lineage and all these names and just make it up out of the sky. So I honestly believe, brother, that there is a figurehead that an ancient queen of Ethiopia, Queen Makeda, Candace, did go and meet. That is my honest belief. That there is a figurehead that she went and meet outside of the Ethiopian boundaries. A king, a monarch similar to herself. And that amalgamation, because that's, if you study reptilian agenda and so, that's how they move. They amalgamate their royal bloodlines to create a specific powerhouse.
So you're saying that they mix?
I honestly believe so. I honestly believe so. And I believe the allegory of what we read in the Bible is the history of what has really transpired. Okay, so the Solomon thing will kind of shade it, and Solomon don't exist. So you'll throw away the baby with the bathwater. But I would not advise nobody to do that. Trust me. The thing with the Solomon, one last thing. You see why I stick to that, and I always tell Rasses, be careful before you throw away that, you know. Why? Because, okay, let us just say, I saying this now, Solomon don't exist. So no Solomon there. Let's just say this. No Solomon. I'm going to say it one more time. No Solomon. You can't find Solomon nowhere. They can't tell me no Solomon talk. Nothing goes so. Good. Bam. In Freemasonry though, Solomon is the Grand Master. They say Solomon is the great architect next to God. Solomon, you know, in Freemasonry. All right. This is why Haile Selassie in Freemasonry was considered as Solomon himself. And that is why if you study any gathering that the emperor was a part of in the Freemasonic world, he always took the highest seat. You watch it. Whether it's a procession of the Knights of the Garter, those that were the head, for example, Prince Charles, who is the head of the Knights of the Garter, the Prince of Wales is always the head of the Knights of the Garter, the oldest order of chivalry when it comes to the Masonic world is not fraternity now, chivalry is the Knights of the Garter. And when Haile Selassie I attended that great ceremony in the 70s, Prince Charles, who is the head of the Knights of the Garter, of course the monarch, which is Queen Elizabeth, is the patron or the matriarch of it. We all know that she's a queen. But the Prince of Wales, from the time it was founded by Edward III and his son Edward the Black Prince, who was the Prince of Wales, became the head of the Knight of the Garter. The head of the Knight of the Garter has always been the Prince of Wales. So when you see the procession, there's a specific seat that the Prince of Wales take. There's a specific position he take in the march, in the procession. When Haile Selassie attended that march, only one time the king went to them things in, once. Prince Charles had to come out of his seat. It's on video. People can watch old BBC News reels and see this. Prince Charles actually came out of the procession and Haile Selassie took his place. Now remember, it's masonry we're dealing with. So it's like chess they're playing, it's chess that in living form. So the head of this moved to make space for the bigger head. Solomon. So these people refer to Haile Selassie as Solomon. It's as if Solomon is here. That's why the Bible says greater than Solomon is here. So even if we now in the literal world going to be arguing about Solomon don't exist and all of that, okay. But in the Freemasonic world, amongst the hierarchy, for whatever reason, these people consider him as the Solomon of their craft. And the Solomon of their craft is considered the Grand Master. So even if he doesn't quote unquote exist, I am telling you, Haile Selassie is greater. Solomon is here.
Do you think if there was no Bible, the world would be a better place?
Although it's a book that I consider, because I am of the opinion that there's a lot of secrets in it, a lot. And anybody that's really into mysticism, they would happily go through that same Bible and try to unlock the codes. It's a coded book. It's full of code. It's like a good puzzle to cuddle up with a nice cup of coffee. I'm telling you the truth, you know. But it has definitely been used as a tool. Now, those of us that use the Bible, I'm going to talk about the conscious. Those of us that use the Bible for a conscious awakening, I would say that at the time, it was the best thing to go for. But right now, I think we're more advanced than that. You know, I think information is much more broader. And in the same way that you could use the Bible to manipulate, you can use other books to manipulate too. You know, it's all about the person that is in control of the book for the moment. Because as I just said earlier, if you take your time and read the Bible for yourself, a lot of things that we've been taught in Sunday school don't manifestate in the reality. Like the land of Israel, I explained. When I examine it in my own reading, I say, no man, this don't look like what we've been taught. This is a different thing altogether. But the book has been used. A lot of them scriptures with slave, obey your master, and you know, don't fight back on all of them things and humble yourself. This has been used to literally dumb down a people. You know, so there's a philosophy about it. When a person, as I said, Haile Selassie speaks of him being glory. He glories in the Bible, him personally. And the Bible itself, the Ethiopian, the Book of Light is called. The name itself not coming straight off my head. I'm not an Amharic scholar, you know. But I honestly believe without the book, if the book was to like be taken out of history, of course we would find ourselves. You know, I think the wicked may have used another way. Look at Islam. The Arabs enslave us too, you know. That's why Islam is so big in parts of Africa. And you don't know it's the same Quran they come with it, and the same enslavement, the same whole story. So now you're reading the Quran. When you read the Quran, you know, is the same sky story you get into now. And Allah this, the other part in the Quran, Allah is the greatest deceiver. Right, live. That's what. Allah, you know, this and the whole thing.
But didn't half of if not half, most of these countries that invaded Africa, did they not go into a council to agree on how they would use the Bible on this nation? Mm-hmm. Which is why now all of them have their own Bible, but has the same story. Mm-hmm. Would it not be that of the Council of Nicaea and Berlin and all these councils? Do you think was it not for this council that all of them had this idea of getting the scriptures from Africa and then taking it to their place, stripping it down, ripping it down, then bringing it back out, which is why we are talking about the first one to release was the Gutenberg, and then from there others followed. Wasn't it of these councils why you think that all of these nations who have their own Bible now, it is the same, the storyline is the same, but they all see different gods and concepts and ideas are a bit different. Would you not say it was because of the invasion of Africa why they used the Bible in this way?
There's a phrase that the emperor used that no matter the translation, the word remains one and the same. And I come to realize that I haven't read all of them, but I know the basic storyline is the same. But the Bible, again, any which way you turn it,
His Majesty's word for word, quoting, what did he say when he said, "We in Africa has the oldest"?
Oh, that's a long speech.
But that just that part. What did he say?
The oldest version or the
Yes.
No, he said we in Ethiopia have one of the oldest version of the Bible, word for word now. Wow, and no matter what language it may be written in, the word remains one and the same.
Thank you very much.
Okay, right, yes. But I believe that means that the storyline is basically the same. But the storyline from all the other books that were older than the Bible is basically the same too. That's what I'm saying, you know. So again, the Bible, give thanks for the Bible as such. But I personally, I don't hold on to it as the saving grace. That's why I could see a world without it. And I could see how it has been used to literally conquer a people. The origin of it, I honestly believe the origin of the makeup of the books were a bit more genuine than what it is today. Even coming out from the Temple of Alexandria, I think that makeup of the so-called Septuagint was even a bit more genuine than what the Bible has come down to. I honestly believe that the all them versions that you talk about in these councils, yes, it was manipulated, especially the Sunday school version of it, to keep a people enslaved. Without a doubt, the literal Bible, it was manipulated within the book too. Stories and things that they change around is obvious. Look, you can read Shakespeare's name in the Bible in Psalms 46. When you count 46 words, 1, 2, 3, 4, you get shake. And when you count 46 words from the back, 1, 2, 3, 4, you get spear. In Psalms 46, that is proof that somebody meddled with this. So it's a meddled book. It has been played around with literally purposely to change certain concepts to fool the people off.
To keep within the line.
It's almost a dangerous book to read, eh?
Within Rastafari.
It's like a gun. That's why they call it the cannon, you know. It's like a gun. A gun can do good, you know. Some people don't believe that, but I mean, hey, a gun can do good, but a gun is a dangerous thing.
Within the line of Rastafari, and now the crossings of one scene that the old way of Rastafari or the foundation of Rastafari was built upon the Bible. One scene that there was a Jesus Christ, and because of Jesus Christ now he has come forward as Haile Selassie. And all of those conceptions. Now, ones who's Rasta now is saying, no, we don't see it this way. We see it a different way, which is why this interview is based more upon the Bible and how do you see it and the history of it. What do you think Rasta need to do now to come together? Because there seems to be no unification within Rastafari, within listening to one reasons, because I have interviewed quite a few Rasta brethren, not just Bobo as yourself, but Naya Bingi and 12 Tribe. And there seems to be a mislinked, and there seems to be some confusion that is going on within how one see Rastafari. What is your take right now on what Rastafari has to do to come together?
Well, for us to come together, I don't know if it's Bible.
No, okay, as a people to move forward and not to think about only Bible. Even if one see the Bible, one don't see the Bible. What can we do to move forward as a people?
I think we have to move forward on an economic base. I don't think we can nearly think about coming together under no religious, spiritual, theological idea. You know, we don't want to be like no conquerors putting no gun to nobody's head to force them to believe what we believe, because some of us tend to do that. And I mean, that's impossible. I mean, even if I have a theology, I'm even skeptical of people saying, man, I believe what you say. No, I don't like that. I don't really like I like people to think for themselves, man. So you can't force no one to believe what you say. Us as Rastafari, I honestly think that for us to unite, we have to have a domestic economic structure. You know, we have to, I think it should start as pockets within the islands and the communities. So like here, I wouldn't even try the world before here, because internationally, you know, we have had few conferences, and no matter what Rasta do, you know, they have a next set of Rasta that's not a part of that, you know. So you always end up a kind of lopsided way. But I think, for example, in this small island that we have here, I honestly believe we all basically know each other. We are 108 square miles. How much people? 90 or 100,000 people in the island. Not Rasta, 100,000 people in the island. Just a few thousand Rastafaris, and yet still we have a deep, rich history here in Antigua. We have the establishment of, you know, Ras Freeman and King Sagaifu's camp, and, you know, from the time of One Love, and we can go back historically. We have a lot of ancient elders here from the Bagalaga that has moved on, great musicians, and, you know, Bruce Goodwin, great activists, and different people amongst us. So we have leaders and we have good potential, some young ones, myself, yourself. You know, we have a rich history here. I honestly believe, we don't like leadership too, we kind of don't like leadership. But I honestly see that if we can gather our resources together, and I think we should make it as simple as we can, where we project, we should have a projection for 2-3 years for starts to establish a business. If we're not establishing a business, I think we're wasting time. We need to establish a Rastafari business, whether it's honeybee harvesting, or whether it's selling and buying material, whether it be leather or textile. We can do all these things. Going into the media, or even the agriculture. But I'm saying that if we gather, if 200 of us can gather together, even 100 of us can gather, and we can put aside a small amount of finance every week. Let's just say $1 a week or $2 a week. I like to stick to the dollar to keep it simple so you can't run away from it. If 100 of us as Rastafari could put aside $1 a week, and we specifically understand that, hey, look, $1 a week now, when we do this now, by the end of the year, we're supposed to have a specific amount of money. $1 a week, 52 weeks in a year. How much people? I said 100 people. So that's $5,200. Okay, that may sound like a little bit, $5,200. Okay, ain't too much of money. But of course, if 100 of us as working brothers come together and sisters, I mean, and we say $1 a week, I personally, I'm not going to bring $1 a week. You know, so I know for sure if we have that dedication, by the end of the year, we have at least $10,000. We can start a small business. 100 of us did that. That same small business can employ, let's just say 12 of us, you know, and then we continue to grow on that fashion and that pattern. This is a pattern that other Rastafari groups all over the world could emulate, because I honestly think, and not just Rastafari, this is a method that can use even in any group, even in a city, even in a community. Say we live in this community here and we need to fix the gutters in the street, or we need to fix, you know, Miss Mary roof or something like that. Instead of going to government, the few of us that live in this village, we can have $1 a week program. We can have a specific kitty or a saving account, and we can have, let's just say, 5 people as the council for this. A blend of elders, young ones, male and female, and the council is the one that come together and decide, well, listen, we have $10,000 in the kitty. We have a project here to fix the road that costs $3,000. We're going to take this amount and use it for that. Or somebody wants to start a development and make run a farm and get some pumps and get some agricultural equipment. He wants $3,000. Tell you what, let us give him 3, but you have to pay us back $2,000 within a year time. You know, and build it like a business. I honestly believe if we as Rastafari create that sort of mentality, that economic mentality in our coming together, not religious, not just beating drum and smoking herb, not around marijuana alone. Let's leave that for something else. We can deal with the marijuana issue separately. I don't think it's a good rallying point, but I honestly believe that economically outside of just that alone. That is what would bring us together, especially if we have a simple plan that would unite us economically, and then we begin to grow. That's how I see us as Rastafari.
Thank you, my brother, Priest Isaac. It was good having you in our company this afternoon, and we always give thanks for your vibration and your energy and all that the work that you have done within in this community and this island of Antigua and Barbuda. And continue to do the good works, and we give credence to all the work that you have done for also uplifting us with the food, uplifting us with some of the works that you are doing in Antigua on Green Castle Hill and around the island, and also some of the books that you are writing now for the younger ones to come and read and can get some historical ideas of what was happening before them. Continue to do the good work, Priest Isaac. We bless you.
WADADLI-VYBZ Radio.